search my truck. There's to search my truck. To search my truck. To search my truck.
I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Like you, be strong to hold the powers of the sun.
Listen to Pavarotti.
Can I be your superhero?
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I'm your host, Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. And welcome to another Saturday special. Saturday night special? Saturday special. Depends on how fast I finish this video, I guess. And in this video, we're going to take a new direction. Not new information, but a new direction. But I assure you, I'll show you some information you've never seen before in a way that you've never seen it. Because in this video, we're going to dive into one of the strangest aspects of this case, which is the fact that the FBI identified the vehicle in the King Road neighborhood by taking a photograph of a vehicle on Ridge Road that is a green Elantra you've seen in the opening, and using that video to determine that the vehicle in the King Road neighborhood was the same vehicle. That's what we've been told, but that's not actually what happened. What I'm going to show you in this video is exactly what happened, and I'm going to prove it. I'm going to prove it with testimony of one Brett Payne using what Ann Taylor has been saying forever and showing you exactly when the FBI got the picture of the vehicle on Ridge Road and decided to use that as part of verification of the investigation. Unfreaking believable. And Brett Payne admits to it on the stand, but you never got to see that one because he admitted to it on the stand in the closed hearing. And this thing not going to a Franks hearing is the biggest travesty in this entire case. Because when you put the lead investigator who wrote the probable cause affidavit on the stand, and he sits there and admits on the stand to everything that we thought the entire time, especially as it relates to suspect vehicle and the investigation into Bryan Kohberger, then, and you realize that it was all manipulated after the fact, and then it was never verified. And the closest they've got to verifying it was well after Bryan Kohberger's arrest using the wrong vehicle. Well, then that's when I start to say, for those of you out there that think, well, he's got to be guilty. Pop, you need to start thinking in that direction. Yeah, no, because I know the facts of the case. And there is no way, since I know the true facts of the case, that I will come out 1 second before this trial starts and say in any possible way, I think Bryan Kohberger could be guilty, because that is doing an injustice to this country. I assure you, and you, the people, and I will prove that beyond a shadow of a doubt in this episode. And we'll also touch on another aspect of this case, which was the DoorDash driver and what it appears that law enforcement is trying to do with that. And it goes kind of deep, the shenanigans that are being pulled by law enforcement as it relates to this DoorDash driver. I can see it from 100 miles away, and I'm going to share it with you in this, and I'll back it up with evidence once again. So in this episode, I'm going to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt for anybody out there that can even come close to keeping an open mind, this should be the video that opens your mind to the shenanigans and the straight up malfeasance in this case. And if it doesn't, then really you need to go check yourself before you wreck yourself. Let's get rolling with this thing. Okay, now this is going to be a very comprehensive report, and it is extremely accurate, and I will show receipts for everything that I say, and I'm going to do it in stages, and I'm going to do it slow just to make sure everybody follows along. And we're going to start with this on suspect vehicle, and we're going to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that they never identified Kohberger's car to be suspect vehicle until they had footage of him actually returning from Wawa Park the morning after the atrocity, and his vehicle didn't match anything that they had to the vehicles that they were viewing over in Moscow, Idaho, and they admit it. Ann Taylor's been right all along, just nobody wants to listen to her. So starting with November 13th, 2022, the FBI, with the atrocity, then we move to November 23rd, 2022. This is the first time that the FBI addresses the vehicle seen on camera footage around the King Road residence as being a Hyundai Elantra. And they do it using the Ridge Road video, and they identify it as a 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra. I'm going to give you receipts for everything I say. On November 25th, an internal be on the lookout goes out to all law enforcement for a white 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra by Moscow PD. The very next day, the FBI expands the be on the lookout to 2011 to 2016. However, it never goes out because 5 minutes later, they recanted that extension, and the FBI agent said he felt much more comfortable with the Bolo going out to be a 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra, all based on the camera footage from Ridge Road that we all stare at the pictures of now. And I'll prove all this. Then on December 6th, coincidentally, the DoorDash warrant goes out. And then on December the 7th, a press release goes out to the public for a be on the lookout for a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra that we've all seen. But then on December the 20th, the FBI gets the footage from WSU, and they look at the return footage of Bryan Kohberger's actual vehicle returning back to his apartment from Wawa Park, and they use that footage on December 20th to declare a 2014 to 2016 Hyundai Elantra. They never use the Ridge Road footage to declare those year models. They only use the footage of Bryan Kohberger's actual car, and I will prove it. The FBI admits it. And then the FBI, on February 6, 2023, they literally used the same footage that they determined to be an 11 to 13 on Ridge Road to retro identify, to try to back up the investigation as using that vehicle to be a 2014 to 16 Hyundai Elantra. And that was their fatal mistake, because that Hyundai Elantra is the green Hyundai Elantra, and we will verify that as well. And it most certainly has a front license plate. And I'm going to show you the biggest lies of this thing that you can possibly imagine, but I'm going to give you receipts on everything that I just said right there. First of all, this is the FBI's exhaustive report on suspect vehicle. And it starts with below the noted camera locations were checked for their time stamp and accuracy as compared to the actual current time. The following accuracy was found for each location. These are the cameras that are used in the investigation to determine suspect vehicle. It starts at 787 Indian Hills Drive, not Stadium Way and Nevada Street in Washington State University, not Floyd's Cannabis Shop. And you've got 3 cameras on Indian Hills. South Main Street in Moscow, which is the A&W. Ridge Road, 2 cameras. Linda Lane, 2 cameras. 1112 King. So here's the other Linda Lane. Paradise Drive. Bishop Boulevard. This is the return trip to WSU. Stadium Way on the return trip. 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 5th Street in Clarkston, Washington the next morning. Clarkston, Washington the next morning. Bridge Street in Clarkston, Washington the next morning. Johnson Avenue in Pullman, Washington the next morning. Not once did they use Stadium Way and Nevada Street when Kohberger left his apartment, like the PCA says, and not once did they use Floyd's cannabis shop, like the MPD suggests. When they go through the exhaustive report of all the sightings, including just headlights on trees, we get to where they start talking about a vehicle matching the description. However, when we go through their exhaustive report, we're going to find some interesting things. At the end of their exhaustive report, it says, through the course of this video review, clips showing vehicles matching the description of Vehicle 1 were seen on the WSU surveillance cameras located along Stadium Way in Pullman, Washington, and were collected from live camera system by Special Agent Hilly. It sure was on December the 20th. And these clips were turned over to Moscow Police Department for storage. Surveillance review of the WSU camera system was conducted using a live view system. Due to functionality of the system, only small clips were available to be extracted and maintained. Special Agent Hilly reviewed the WSU cameras between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. Yet, none of them were used in the identification purposes until 5:58 a.m. or 5:38 a.m., whatever time it was, never at 2:54 and 2:47. On November 13, 2022, and collected clips which showed vehicles matching the description of Vehicle 1. These sightings are noted above, never the ones of him leaving his apartment. No other sightings of vehicles matching this description were observed. Nowhere are the vehicles listed on WSU prior to 5:28 a.m., nor the vehicle on Floyd's cannabis shop camera are ever listed in the FBI report as being a sighting of a vehicle matching its description. Those were both. One was a lie. The other one is a MPD lie, not an FBI lie. Let's continue. That's one of the biggest bombshells right there, is the FBI admitting that the camera shots on Stadium Way and Nevada Street of the vehicle leaving and Floyd Cannabis Shop were never part of their investigation. Now, on March 21st, this report was generated. They requested it on December 14th. And this will tell us when they actually got all of these camera shots and where they are. On November 21st, we know now that's when they got the balcony video of 1112 King Road and examined it. On 11/19, this is going to be video of who knows. I'm assuming this is probably Linda Lane. On December 7th, we know that was the day that the gas station video was provided to them from the news network. And this one was determined, according to the FBI report, to not be suspect vehicle, because they never used the gas station video in their FBI report to determine suspect vehicle. And you clearly seen where the FBI report said no other vehicles matching the description were observed by the FBI. So this was not one of them. Now, on November 23rd, that's when they got the Ridge Road video. This is it right here, and I'll verify that for you through another receipt. But then on December the 20th, this is when they got the WSU videos of actual Bryan Kohberger's car coming back, and that's where they made all of their identifications. That's also where they came up with the vehicle didn't have a front license plate, and I'll prove that as well. The dates of this examination were November 19th through March 21st, but the actual date that they decided to use the Ridge Road green car as verification wasn't until February 24th, 2023, way after Bryan Kohberger was arrested. And this tells the story right here. This is what Ann Taylor's been screaming from the rooftops since the beginning. The submitted videos on November 19th and November 21st, 2022 were reviewed to determine the questioned vehicle's make, model, and year. Due to insufficient image detail and obscured views produced by the blooming of the vehicle's headlights, the make, model, and year could not be determined. That is from Linda Lane and 1112 King. The FBI admits they can't determine a make, model, or year from these videos. These were never used to determine a make, model, or year. When the judge asked Ann Taylor in court, what do you think the FBI will testify to? And she said they're not going to be able to testify to being able to identify the vehicle in the King Road neighborhood, and the judge argued with her. Well, the judge was wrong because he hasn't read the FBI's report, apparently. But on November 23rd, 2022, the Ridge Road video, and we'll look at the receipts for this on the motion for Franks. The submitted videos on November 23rd, 2022, which we know to be the Ridge Road video, I will prove it, were reviewed to determine the questioned vehicle's make, model, and year. The questioned vehicle shares similar characteristics with a fifth-generation Hyundai Elantra between 2011 and 2013. So when the FBI first received these pictures that they later, of the green car, that they later determined to be Bryan Kohberger's car in February the next year, when they first received these pictures, they determined this to be 11 to 13. They never wavered from that until after Bryan Kohberger was arrested. Where was I at? On November 26, 2022, after reviewing expanded known information to include the rear bumper reflector and the shape of the fog lights, the Hyundai Elantra, the questioned vehicle's year was expanded to the fifth generation between 11 to 16. What they leave out right here is 5 minutes later, it was retracted back to 11 to 13. Let me go ahead and prove these 2 points with the Franks motion real quick, and then I'll return. First, in the judge's order on Franks, he lists this right here. What the email chain shows is that on November 26, 2022, Agent Imel directed the FBI to open up their search to 2011 to 2016. In doing so, he discusses the changes to the Hyundai Elantra in 2014 and 2017 and stated that he wanted a better shot of the vehicle's front fog lights and rear reflectors. He further added, rather not leaving anything out, better safe than sorry. 5 minutes later, he sent another email stating, yeah, I see the change in 2014, and I'm not really a fan of the 14 much prefer the 11 to 13, but wanted to lay that out. Have a good night. Then they kept it to 11 and a 13, and they sent out a BOLO. So there's receipt number 1. 5 minutes later, after he's seen the changes to the 14 and the 17, he said he much preferred the 11 to 13, not 11 to 16. So they never identified the 2014 Hyundai Elantra until they received Kohberger's name and got Kohberger's car off of the WSU footage after December the 20th. So it's all been a lie. let's go ahead and provide the other receipt that the November 23rd is the Ridge Road footage. Law enforcement based its identification of the vehicle on the Ridge Road footage because we have the emails from the FBI specialist who explains on November 23rd, 2022, that their team is mainly looking at the window configuration, something these other images do not. But later that day, an FBI agent sends them images from this video calling it a great one. And that's where they determined from the Ridge Road footage that it was an 11-13. Before they sent out the email stating expand the search on November the 26th to 11-16, and then 5 minutes later, retracting it back to 11-13. All receipts are in. Now, when we come back here, we've already provided receipts for all of this. Then the submitted video received on December 7th was reviewed to determine the questioned vehicle's make, model, and year. Due to insufficient image detail, the vehicle's make, model, and year could not be determined. Since we know this was the gas station video, and I've already showed you where the FBI did not rely on this video in their report, and they said there was no other images of vehicles that matched suspect vehicle's description, then we know this was not the suspect vehicle in the gas station video. That was a Toyota Prius. But then right here it comes to the reality of things. The submitted videos and images on December 20th, 2022 were reviewed to determine the questioned vehicle's make, model, and year. The questioned vehicle shares similar class characteristics with a fifth. This is actually Bryan's car coming back the next morning. They did not even get the WSU footage of that vehicle coming back till December 20th. And that is when they went to the 2014 to 2016 identification of Kohberger's car. The similar class characteristics include, but are not limited to, the overall body style, window configuration, all of it. This is when they went to 2014 and 2016 in the affidavit, in the investigation leading up to the arrest of Kohberger. Then in February the next year, the FBI finally took the Ridge Road camera footage and backtracked, trying to help out the investigation or the arrest, and tried to declare that to be the same vehicle characteristics to back up the PCA, when that's not even Bryan Kohberger's car. That's a green Hyundai Elantra with a front license plate, and that's where they have made a big mistake, y'all. But I wanted to give you all of these receipts because I'm not done. I'm going to show you the shocking information coming to you shortly here in just a few minutes. But you have to understand all of this from the FBI report first. These vehicles we just determined are the shots of the vehicle from Ridge Road that they used to determine it. But these cameras that the FBI used to determine an Elantra, and until this report, they determined these three photos to be a 2011 to 2013. You've seen it in their documentation. They did not change this identification until February of 2023, right here, long after Bryan Kohberger was arrested. You got to understand that information first. Now, I need everybody just to hang with me as we go through this, because I know I'm going through this. You may have already heard me say it in a different way at one point, and I'm giving you receipts for everything I'm saying as I go through. We're about to go through the second portion of this, and I'm going to give you receipts for everything that I say then as well. But for those of you out there that have waned in your thoughts that Bryan Kohberger should be looked at as more guilty than innocent, I really need you to pay attention, because what I'm going to do once I get through this portion is, even though I'm backing everything up with receipts as I go, I'm going to show you something you've never seen and I've never presented to you. I'm going to show you where the testimony in the closed hearing of Brett Payne actually admits to every single thing that I'm pointing out right now, backing up with receipts, he literally on the stand admits to all of it. Hang with me. Now, let me do this one more time quickly since we've gone through all the receipts for this now, just so everybody's on the same page. The atrocity on November 13th. They receive and review the 1112 King Road camera footage, Linda Lane footage, all on the 19th and the 21st. They identify a 2011 to 13 Hyundai Elantra from the Ridge Road footage on November 23rd, 2022, the FBI identification specialist. They send out an internal BOLO on the 25th for an 11 to 13 Elantra. On the 26th, he started to expand the BOLO to 11 to 16, but 5 minutes later, he recanted it and kept it at 11 to 13. On December 6th, the DoorDash warrant goes out, coincidentally, to the December 7th press release for the BOLO for an 11 to 13, proving that this 5 minutes later, he was serious enough about it to when they put the BOLO out, they still put it out for 11 to 13 on December 7th to the public. Never until December 20th, 2022, when they actually got Bryan's name and the WSU camera footage we just put a receipt for, did they ever take it from 11 to 13 to a 14 to 16. But then on February 6th, the FBI used the same footage, and now they're going to try to say, because they're right, that footage is a 14 to 16 Hyundai Elantra. The problem they're going to have is that's not Kohberger's car. That is the green Elantra, and it most certainly has a front license plate. Now, moving on to the second part. And I know I got this kind of crazy right here, but just follow me on this, because this is where this thing should have been sent to a Frank's motion, and I'm going to show you where Brett Payne admits to all of this. But this is the PCA evidence used to obtain the arrest of Bryan Kohberger. And as you go through the PCA, this is how it's written. On November 29th, the WSU cops find Kohberger's Elantra. This is how the PCA is written in a timeline fashion. On the same day, it's made to look like on the same day, Payne pulls Bryan's driver's license and he matches the description of Dylan's description. It's made to look like on the same day, Payne pulls Bryan's plates and determines he didn't have a front license plate at the time. On the same day, it's made to look like Payne pulls Bryan's student history and finds his Reddit survey. On the same day, it's made to look like when he finds out that Kohberger didn't have a front license plate, that the Steiner camera footage showed the Elantra without a front plate. So it matched the Steiner camera footage. I'm going to show you where Payne admits this is a lie. They never had no front license plate on the vehicle until December 20th when they looked at Bryan Kohberger's actual car. And the one they used to determine the Elantra in the King Road neighborhood that didn't have the front license plate actually has one. And I'm sure they can see it now. But also, it's made to look like on November 29th that Payne checks Kohberger's phone with the tower dump, and Kohberger's phone's not on it. So he says criminals turn off phones when committing crimes. And then it's made to look like they reviewed the WSU camera footage of the Elantra returning actual Kohberger's car on November 29th. They didn't even get the footage until December 20th, I just showed you. Then on December 23rd, Payton gets the warrant for his AT&T phone, and then he gets another warrant on December 23rd, and that's where they determine Kohberger's location, and it's nowhere near the King Road residence, and that's when they look in his history and determine that he went near the King Road residence, meaning on those towers, and it said 13 times or 12 times in the probable cause affidavit, which led to the arrest. What I'm going to show you is Brett Payne admits that all of this is a lie. But first, we're going to go through and I'm going to show you very quickly how in the PCA all this is made to look like it happened prior to December 20th And this is a complete lie, and other things are as well. Now, this is what is egregious, y'all. You see, this is Exhibit A, statement of Brett Payne, the probable cause affidavit. But this is actually attached to the motion in limine and the FBI report that shows suspect vehicle, where they tried to make the FBI report match the probable cause affidavit to the point to where the probable cause affidavit is listed in this report. Now, as we go through this, I'm going to point out things that I just talked about and a few other things that are known now to be absolute lies. Exhibit A, statement of Brett Payne. And I'm not going to go into things that look like they're lies. I'm going to go into things that are verified lies now. As we go through Exhibit A, the first lie is BF also estimated that at approximately 1:45, Chapin and Kernodle returned to the King Road residence. Well, we know that is a lie because her grand jury testimony showed that she said that they were not home even at 2:10 a.m. So this is the first verified lie with the court record. DM and BF both made statements during interviews that indicated occupants of the King Road residence were home by 2. Another lie. They said Xana and Ethan weren't home through the court record. This one says Xana was likely awake and using her TikTok app at approximately 4:12 a.m. Another lie, according to the court receipts of the TikTok app for Xana, showing that the last time her TikTok app was accessed was 3:16 a.m. Now, this is the most egregious lie in the entire case against Bryan Kohberger. It says westbound on Steiner Avenue at Idaho State 95 in Moscow at approximately 3:28 a.m. On this video, it appears suspect vehicle 1 was not displaying a front license plate. This was the biggest lie in the PCA, in my opinion, because this is the lie that makes it look like when they reviewed the video footage of suspect vehicle at the A&W Root Beer gas station, that this video showed that suspect vehicle 1 wasn't displaying a front license plate. So that when they looked in Kohberger's vehicle records and his vehicle from Pennsylvania didn't have a front license plate, this statement right here was to associate Kohberger's vehicle to this vehicle. And this right here is an outright lie, according to the sworn testimony of Brett Payne on the stand in the closed hearing. Biggest lie in the entire case. And I will prove that here in just a minute. Then, after reviewing numerous observations of suspect vehicle 1, suspect vehicle 1 was a 2011 to 2013, according to the FBI examiner. Upon further review, he also indicated it could be 11 to 16. Whereas but 5 minutes later, he said, no, keep it 11 to 13 right here. And then it never changed to an 11 to 16 until they found Bryan Kohberger's car on WSU footage coming back from Milwaukee Park on December 20th, 2022. This is another lie. Half-truth at best. Leaving out the 5 minutes later, he recanted and he said he felt comfortable with the 11 to 13 model range. Investigators were given access to footage on Washington State University, located in Pullman, Washington. You see, this comes right after suspect vehicle 1 footage was given to them in the PCA, making it look like all of this happened in early December or late November. This camera footage, we now know through the FBI report, they didn't get until December the 20th, 3 days before Payne got the warrant. They're making it look like they got it on 11/29 and just followed right through the investigation. This is when they changed the vehicle year model to 2011 or 2014 to 2016. And it even says it in their PCA here in just a minute. But also, Suspect vehicle 1 was observed on WSU surveillance cameras traveling north on Southeast Nevada Street, Northeast Stadium Way at 253 and 244. Now they know. The FBI report I just showed you verifies this was not Bryan Kohberger's car, and it was a lie in the PCA. And if you need me to show you the self-authenticating records that the state is going to use at the trial, they have also dropped this footage. These are verified through self-authentication of record, this very report to not be Bryan Kohberger's car. And it doesn't say it's not suspect vehicle's car, though, because if it wasn't Bryan's and another car came, maybe it was suspect vehicle, but they know it wasn't Bryan Kohberger's car. That was a lie. Now, here's where it gets really egregious, because when they show the picture of suspect vehicle returning, here's what they did after they realized that that wasn't Bryan Kohberger's car at the WSU campus. And you got to understand, even Ann Taylor said this in the trial, or in the hearing. She said they realized that wasn't his car, but they never went back and corrected it. They didn't change it. Because on this map, you can bet they originally had Bryan Kohberger's car with an arrow pointing right here. They took it out and made it look like, well, this is just depicting Moscow and Pullman. And they took that out. They just erased the arrow. But they weren't smart enough to correct their mistake on the next picture. Because on this picture, they've got a legend. And the legend shows the white Elantra seen leaving WSU campus. And it's notated with this yellow arrow. You see this yellow arrow right here? That's showing Kohberger's car aimed towards 270 heading this way. That's why when Ann Taylor said the extra 7 minutes, it wasn't 247, it was another 7 minutes. When Kohberger wasn't going this way and that arrow made it look like he was going that way. And they knew it and they didn't correct it. These are the arrows coming back in, and now they're not even going to use this camera footage prior to 528. The PCA clearly depicts a yellow arrow showing suspect vehicle leaving WSU on Stadium Way. I'll prove this false in this same report, and I already have. We've already gone through that. They said in this report that there were no other vehicles that matched the description on the images other than what was in the FBI report, and these two camera shots were not on the FBI report, so they were not images of suspect vehicle. It was a lie. But look how this PCA flows. All this stuff I showed you that didn't happen until December 20th, now look, it gets into, now we're on November 25th. Like that was all part of the flow of the investigation. It was all a lie. On November 25th, Moscow PD asked local enforcement agencies to be on the lookout for white Hyundai Elantras. I showed you this in the progression. This was when they said white Elantras on the internal Bolo. Never did they change it from anything. It didn't say white Elantras, though. It said 2011 to 2013 white Elantras. On November 29th, 2022, at approximately 12:28, Washington State University police officer Daniel Tiango queried white Elantras at WSU. This is true. This happened. As a result of that query, he located a 2015 white Elantra. Pennsylvania license plate LFZ 8649. The vehicle was registered to Kohberger, residing at 1630 Northeast Valley Road in Pullman, Washington. Approximately 3/4 of a mile from the intersection of Stadium Way, trying to associate Kohberger's car with Cougar and Stadium Way. Last camera location that picked up the Elantra. Remember, this was before they got the AT&T warrant. So when they got the AT&T warrant and they got his location, they knew that wasn't his car on Stadium Way and Cougar Way. They never corrected this, though, in their PCA. But they were trying to associate Kohberger with those two camera footages. FBI admits now this wasn't even Bryan's car. Listen to Ann Taylor as she says it.
In the first AT&T warrant, in that affidavit, the police officer talks about 2:42 a.m. that WSU cameras, because they start looking at WSU cameras after the IGG identification, they find a white car that they say is an Elantra at 2:42. So they get the phone records, and then it becomes 2:44 that they say Mr. Kohberger's leaving his residence, 2:44 a.m. And the place near Bishop Boulevard where one could turn to go to Moscow at 2:42 is inconsistent with 2:44, but they don't correct that. They don't correct that. They don't say that vehicle at 2:42 cannot have been the right white Elantra running around that night, because we now know it was at 2:44 a.m. Because
Watch
we now
Truth
know
and
it was at
Transparency's
2:44
reaction. It's
a.m.
classic. So now we know all this camera footage of a vehicle leaving WSU is a lie, and the FBI has admitted it in this very report, and the state has admitted it in their self-authenticating records. But also, the FBI has admitted in this report that the vehicle at Floyd Cannabis Shop was never one that they identified as being suspect vehicle, and the state hasn't given up on that one yet, though. So that is egregious, but they will be destroyed with that one. But let's keep going. That same day, WSU officer Curtis Whitman, looking for white Hyundai Elantras, located a 2015 Hyundai Elantra. It's in an apartment complex that houses WSU students. Officer Whitman also ran the car and returned to Kohberger with a Washington tag. This is also true. This happened on 11/29. But then the lie starts. I reviewed Kohberger's Washington State driver's license information and photograph. This license indicates Kohberger's a white male, 6 foot, 185. This doesn't happen until December 20th. They're trying to make it look like this happened right after this on November 29th. And then they get into the body cam footage where they get Kohberger's name. And then they get into where Kohberger doesn't have a front license plate, which is the biggest lie. This is the first time no plate ever comes up in this investigation. According to Payne's testimony that I'm going to show you, the lie about the front plate on Steiner is added, and that is egregious. They never had front license plate missing until they got the WSU footage of Kohberger's actual car coming back, and they lied about it. And then they put it in here to really point it out, so it made it look like it correlated to the Steiner video, right? They checked the Pennsylvania, and it shows they don't require a front license plate. They orchestrated that front license plate based on my own experience and communication with Washington law enforcement. I know Idaho and Washington require front and back license plates, trying to give it more weight to the Steiner lie. And investigators believe Kohberger's still driving the 15 white Elantra because his vehicle was captured on December 13th. On December 16th in Albrightsville. They were providing these dates because it made it look like that's how the investigation was going in order. None of this happened till December 20th, and it was all just, it was made up. It was made up to look like that. And then they go into Kohberger's a PhD student. Part of the investigation, law enforcement obtained search warrants for cellular devices. From 3 to 5 a.m., we checked his phone against the tower dump. His phone did not show he was in the area, but individuals can leave their cell phone off at different locations when committing a crime or turn their cell phone off prior to going to a location for a crime. This is where you see the moron on freaking Law and Crime go, sometimes the best evidence is no evidence. Idiot. On December 23rd, I applied for and was granted a search warrant. Yeah, 3 days after everything you just said that happened throughout the month of December happened. And then it gets down to the egregiousness of this right here. And this is egregious because we learned, and I've showed you this before, we learned in this picture up here. Let's go back to this picture. Where is it at? Right here. We learned in this picture that they have a legend, right? And these legends show colored arrows and which way they're traveling. And they don't show any blue arrows in this legend, but we know that their arrow means the direction of travel. So when they get down to this one, let's make it a little bigger. When we get down to this one, and we look at these arrows. This blue arrow, they just don't even talk about. See how it's facing up right here? And then it's been erased from here to here, and a little X is put on it. And see how this line goes up to this red going up? This is where they started. They thought Kohberger left his apartment, came down, drove all this way around, got up to here, and was heading north into Moscow. Then they changed their mind, because look at this. They erased the blue arrow, put a black X here after the fact. You know it's after the fact because they erased the blue arrow and put the black X. And then changed their story and said, no, wait, when he left, look at these black arrows. He came back this way. I could never see a clear enough picture of this thing to be able to see all this until this FBI report. Now I can see it clearly. This was their determination of how Kohberger went to the residence at first, with this blue arrow pointing up right here. Then they erased it and said, okay, let's just use this same drawing and say he came back that way. And the black X right here tells the story with the black arrows. Freaking ridiculous. Now, let's go to this sheet one more time, and then I'm going to prove, on top of proving everything that I just said was 1,000% accurate through the testimony in the closed hearing of Brett Payne. So again, just to recap, in the PCA, Brett Payne structured it to look like this. On November 29th, WSU cops find Kohberger's Elantra. Payne pulls BK's driver's license. He matches Dylan's description on November 29th. November 29th, Payne pulls Bryan's plates, determines he didn't have a front license plate at the time. November 29th, Payne pulls Bryan's student history and finds a Reddit survey. At the same time, Payne is insinuating that on the Steiner camera, it shows an Elantra circling the neighborhood without a front license plate to give this the connection to Kohberger. On November 29th, Payne checks the tower dump. Kohberger's phone's not on it. It says criminals turn off phones when committing crimes. November 29th, they review WSU footage of Elantra returning. 12/23 gets a warrant for Kohberger's AT&T phone. 12/23 determines location night of next day. 12/23 second AT&T warrant shows past location. But if you remember nothing else in all of this, one thing I do want you to remember and really let it sink in. And that is the fact that Payne put in his probable cause affidavit that the Steiner camera of the Elantra showed no front license plate. The Steiner camera showed no front license plate, and they never relied on Ridge Road for no front license plate. Then I want you to look at the fact that he determined Kohberger didn't have a front license plate at the time, and no, that's the biggest egregious lie in this entire thing, and that is the thing that's going to destroy the state's entire case because it's a lie, and lies cannot stand on good foundations. Everything I just showed you that Payne put in his probable cause affidavit and insinuated that happened when they happened on November 29th through December 15th at the earliest was all a lie admitted to on the stand by Brett Payne. Other than the WSU police logging Bryan's cars, just another Elantra, none of this happened prior to December 20th. And the license plate, no front having license plate on Steiner was an outright lie. And there should have been a Frank's hearing granted because of that, but the judge cut them off and didn't let them do it. And I'm going to prove it now. Now, here's the testimony of Brett Payne. Question by Ann Taylor, and I'm going to go just to the parts that pertain to what we're talking about today. Ann's in pink and Brett's in yellow. By the time it was December 19th and you first heard of Bryan Kohberger's name, had you reviewed videotapes? Yes, ma'am. How many hours of videotapes do you think you reviewed? I don't remember a lot. I can't give you an accurate representation. In those videotapes, did you focus in on any particular ones that were of interest to you? Yes, ma'am. In particular would be are you talking about the addresses that were, how would you like me to refer to them? how you nicknamed the cameras. So the first one was from 1112 King Road. It was a surveillance camera, an exterior surveillance camera on a house that was immediately to the northeast of 1122 King Road. There was some footage from a Linda Lane camera. I forget the address off the top of my head. There was footage from the A&W, which is at the corner of Louder and South Main, or Highway 95. There was footage from an address on Indian Hills, and there was also footage from a Ridge Road camera. And that's how we referred to them, was basically by those names. With those referenced in mind and keeping December 19th in mind, which of those cameras were your focus before you learned of Bryan? I would say all of them were important before that. And it was later that other cameras became important. Is that right? Those were the main ones we relied upon for vehicles in particular, is what those ones were. Redirect. Is it your understanding that the FBI's work said that it was Bryan Kohberger's DNA on the sheath? That is not my understanding. What is your understanding? My understanding is that the FBI concluded that Bryan Kohberger was a possible source of the DNA that we should look into. They did not, to my knowledge, at any point say Bryan Kohberger's DNA is on the knife sheath. That was never conveyed to me. On December 20th, when that happened, when he's somebody you should look into, what did you do? We already started looking into him from the previous evening. So that day, December 20th, we began going through basically our sort of standard investigative procedures that we had been doing throughout the investigation for various leads, to include basic DMV searches, NCIC offline returns, NCIC searches. We have a database called TLO, which is a credit-based search we use to find basic information. So we started doing all those things, looking for information on Mr. Kohberger. Side note, December 20th is when they started doing everything that was in the PCA we're talking about. Back to the transcript. And what you found is that he didn't have a criminal history. Is that right? Correct. Another direction. I want to back up and talk about the affidavits. I think you told me in a prior hearing that you were the person that wrote Exhibit A, or the affidavit in support of the search warrants, when it came to looking for things about Bryan Kohberger. Did I understand that right? Yes, ma'am. And that affidavit, when you began, was that on about December 23rd to get records? I believe it was December 23rd, yes. We're going to move on to back on the car. Help me understand what parts were added after you knew Mr. Kohberger's name. And here's where he just lays out the entire probable cause affidavit being a lie and how it really laid down. Well, to walk down the line best I can. So obviously there's the initial component, which is the crime scene, the testimony from the roommates. Then after that, it shifts to, I believe, the first mention of, or the first component was that Bryan Kohberger was pulled over by Corporal Duke on a traffic stop. He was also contacted by WSU police. His vehicle was ran by WSU PD officers. And then after that, we included trying to walk down through the thing without it in front of me. Then we included the vehicle information that was about the white Elantra. And after that, we included his residence and that he had hit LPRs, or his vehicle had been seen on LPRs between Moscow or Pullman, in Pennsylvania. And then there was the component about where he lived in Pennsylvania. Let's go to the part of your affidavit for December 23rd, AT&T 1, the part where you put in things particular to Bryan Kohberger. You put in that affidavit a traffic stop, I believe, from August in Moscow, Idaho. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. That traffic stop, was that on your radar before December 19th when you learned of Bryan Kohberger's name? No, ma'am. The next thing you relied on was a traffic stop at WSU. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Was that traffic stop on your radar before you knew of Bryan Kohberger's name on December 19th? No, ma'am. You put in that information about front license plates being missing from Pennsylvania cars. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. The 1112 video did not show enough of the vehicle that you could see whether it had a front license plate. Is that right? That sounds correct, yes. So it was after you learned of Bryan Kohberger's name that became part of your affidavit. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Bam, bam, bam. Yes, ma'am. So it was after you learned of Bryan Kohberger's name that became part of your affidavit. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Front license plate. Never on Steiner. Let's talk about the vehicle identification for a minute before I run back down through the rest of the affidavit after Bryan was identified. When you worked with Special Agent Imel to identify a vehicle, was there more than one vehicle he identified? I don't believe there was. If memory serves, it was just a Hyundai Elantra. Would you agree that he was most comfortable with the years 2011 to 2013? Object, Your Honor. Object. Jennings, object. Oh, okay, Your Honor. Yeah, Your Honor takes it, and there's a 55-minute bench redirect telling Ann Taylor you can't ask any of those questions unless we give you a Frank's hearing, and it was all over. But you can see right there everything we talked about on that outline I gave you in the beginning. Brett Payne admitted to every single thing on there, including they didn't have a front license plate missing until they found Kohberger's car and got his information, seen he didn't have one, and then they lied and said the Steiner camera showed one without a front license plate. Probably because they knew the Ridge Road camera footage of the one had a front license plate. And until February the next year, the FBI didn't have the guts to even put that one in there, as it was Kohberger's car. And to this day, it's going to destroy them, because when you lie, it always comes back on you.
Well, let's talk about that license plate for a second, though, because that's not something you can see from the videos.
Exactly.
Testimony you heard today.
So again, I take us back right here to the PCA. And as it was written, we went through it. You've seen it. He made everything in this PCA look like it happened throughout the month of November, right after 11/29. And then he absolutely lied about the Steiner camera having no front license plate to make BK's car correlate to the car they seen traveling around the King Road neighborhood. He admitted in testimony, went through it himself, that didn't happen until December 20th. 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 And he didn't even know that happened until December 20th. And then he made that up to make that relevant. The only thing they've ever identified as it relates to Bryan Kohberger's car is his actual car coming back from Wawa Park on the WSU cameras, coming back up through on his way home. That's the only thing they've ever identified the vehicle to Bryan Kohberger's vehicle was his own vehicle. In the King Road neighborhood, I just showed you proof where the FBI could not identify anything about the King Road vehicles. They couldn't identify anything about the Linda Lane vehicles. The only vehicle that they used, and it was after the Bryan Kohberger arrest to try to correlate it to Bryan Kohberger's car, was the one they originally identified as an 11 to 13. And that vehicle has a front license plate. It's green, and they are in trouble for that one, I assure you. So if I'll leave it at that, let me move on. So the only vehicle that they've ever correlated to an Elantra in that King Road neighborhood was the vehicle on Ridge Road. Originally, a 2011 to 13 identification by the FBI admitted in all of their reports. They didn't change it to a 14 to 16 until they seen Kohberger's car coming back from WSU. And until the arrest of Bryan Kohberger, that was the only vehicle that they used to determine 14 to 16. It was never the Ridge Road car. Now, February of 2023, the FBI went ahead and changed their initial findings and said, yeah, it's a 14 to 16, which is going to be their downfall because that's the Ridge Road car they did it on. And there absolutely is a front license plate on that car. Even Jules has admitted to that now. And I've done license plate readers on the thing, and it read a license plate. My guy CrimeX, he did an AI breakdown of it. I think Jules actually went over that, and I was going to CrimeX. Sorry, I hadn't got to it yet, but I know Jules did it. I'll do it also in the future, and I'll put your link in the description to watch that video. Y'all check it out. Also, I was going to highlight it in this one as well, but I'm going to dedicate a video to it. My guy MARCB has done an exhaustive research on the DoorDash vehicle when it brought the food and when it left. And I can see a big scheme happening with the DoorDash trying to alter the time that it was delivered and the time that it left to try to coincide with her being able to see Kohberger's car. And it's not the case. And that is a very exhaustive thing that Mark B did. Anytime he does those analysis, you can tell he's put a lot of time and effort into it, and I trust him. I'll put the link to his video in the description of this one, and then I'll do a video soon summarizing that because I know Mark is very, very detailed, and it's so detailed that if you really don't pay attention really, really close, it's hard to follow. So I'll piggyback off of that, and I'll try to make it a little bit more understandable for us people out there that's, a little ADD. But he is awesome. The link to both of those videos will be in the description of this one. And I heard Lana say that she wanted to do a live. I'm all for doing a live with Lana, and that's the last thing I want to say as I leave out on this thing, okay? I'll do a live with Lana because I believe Lana has done more research on this than I have. She's very detailed, and she's gone in depth, and it looks like she wants to find the truth in this thing, and I'd be happy to do a live just to be able to conversate about specifics that I haven't thought of. As far as doing lives, though, people do lives on YouTube. You got to know this. They do lives on YouTube just to talk and chat and let's discuss stuff because that's how they can make money from your super chats and your super thanks and all that kind of stuff. That's why I don't do lives. I watched Tommy Jude and that other guy last night talking. Tommy, you looked like you was having the worst time you've ever had in your life, man. And the other guy wanted to keep bringing me up like he has. Give me a break. And by the way, Tom, you hurt my feelings when you said I deleted I've never deleted any of your comments about frats. Now, I happen to believe I probably don't even read most of the comments about the frats, but I don't delete your comments, Tommy, so that did kind of hurt my feelings. But when it comes to debating somebody like that they don't believe what they're saying. I don't believe that they believe what they're saying, but it wouldn't matter if they did. Why would I want to debate somebody on some live that has absolutely nothing to do with trying to find the truth of the matter of this thing? That's why I don't do lives. When I do a video, I do it for a couple of reasons, because I want to apprise all the people that's followed me for a long time on exactly what I think happened, give them the best information I know to give them. I also do it, though, because it helps me to remember everything about this case. And I've been invested in this thing for some time now, and I want to know everything about it, and I don't want to forget anything. And making videos allows me to do that. So why would I want to do a live with anybody out there that's not looking to find the truth, just want to discuss things? That is not why I'm here. And as far as anybody wants to, talk down about me or spread rumors about me. I don't care about that anymore at this point either. I'm not here to fight with anybody. I'm here for the truth. We're less than a month and a half away from this trial where a guy goes on trial for his life. All right, all the playing and all that other stuff to the side at this point. All that old bogus stuff, let's talk about what could have happened. Give me a break. All that stuff, in my humble opinion, is doing nothing for this situation right now. It's only the truth, finding the truth at this point before this thing goes to trial so that we can watch what happens at trial and make sure that we speak out when we see what's wrong. And when the trial starts, that's when all of my speculation goes out the window. When the trial starts, all my investigating goes out the window. I'll report on that thing every single day as non-biased as anybody's ever seen. And if they're able to come up with evidence that negated some of the stuff that I've looked at along the way, well, so be it. I'll be in favor if they can show me that Bryan Kohberger did this crime. At this point, there's no way they're going to show me Bryan Kohberger did this crime because of things like I showed you in this video right here. But before that happens, I mainly did this video for people that have followed me for a long time. And y'all think I don't watch it in my comments, but I can see in my comments what most people can't. I can see even my people that have been with me for a long time, how they slowly start to get a little bit weaker, and then they start to go over to what I call the dark side. They listen to too many morons and minions out there, and I can see it happening in my comments to some of my people. So I have to do a video like this just to remind them, when you have the state doing what I just explained that they did to a guy in this video, and then you got the defense team that's like just pointing it out. Hey, look, this is what happened. This is what happened, Judge. And then the judge ignores it. And you know that's what happened because they get on the stand and say, yeah, that's exactly what happened. That's what we did. We lied. We made that up, lied about that. And the defense is over there going, well, God, I mean, look, they've lied about all this, Judge. Can I get a Frank's here? Nope. When you see stuff like that happening, you cannot just sit back and go, okay, well, this guy right here must be guilty. Yeah, think about this. Think about the stuff he put in a baggie, 2 months after the crime when he's home in Pennsylvania. Give me a break. Think about the lies that the law enforcement actually admitted to on the stand in getting his affidavit and every piece of evidence in this thing. Those camera footage of the WSU car leaving out. They haven't come out in the news media and said, hey, you know what? We lied about that. But no, they just made it magically disappear from their sheet. It's for those people out there that are starting to lose faith that I did this video for. And no, I don't want to debate anybody. I don't care what anybody out there says about me. This thing ain't about me. I'm involved in this case, and when this thing's over, y'all might not ever see me again because this is the case that I want to have an impact on, and I'm going to do everything I can to have an impact on. Thank you for watching this Saturday night special. Y'all may not see me again until Monday. Might do some fishing. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Post your comments, thoughts, criticisms. Hey, till next time, Pavarotti's out.
To search my truck. To search my truck. To search my truck. To search my truck.